It's Friday. Friday's my day off. I just came back from the gym. I go once a week just to keep an eye on my blood pressure, basically. Do some exercise. Makes me feel better. Better than sitting on my ass. And the thing with playing games for a long time, I'm still playing through Sniper Elite 4 for the second time, or maybe third, I don't know. And it feels fine until I'm done, you know. Then then I don't feel so fit anymore. Anyway, I had an instant Amiga collection, and it's gone already. It was gone on the same day that I had it in here. So I got a message from Pete from On a Retro Tip. We all know Pete, lovely chap. And he messaged me and asked me how far I lived away from Rotterdam, which isn't. I mean, it's not around the corner, but it's less than an hour's drive. And I found out that he'd asked Mark the same question, and apparently there was a pickup in Rotterdam from a guy that Pete had spoken to on Facebook in one of the Amiga groups. And the idea was that this man was going to move on Monday, and he had this Amiga set that he wanted to either... He didn't want to move it. He clearly wasn't interested in it anymore, and he wanted to dump it. So either it was going in the bin, or he was going to give it away. So this was a giveaway. Pete had managed to get his hands on an Amiga lot, which was undefined at that moment. But he wasn't... I mean, Pete being in the UK and this set being in Rotterdam and having to move quickly, he asked the help of Mark or me. So I told Pete, you know, if Mark can't make it, then I might be. Because this was going to be, the pickup was going to be on a Sunday, which was Father's Day, by the way. And me being a father, it would be my day. And then Mark sent me a message. He said, well, either I just came out of a shift, or I'm in one, or... Anyway, he couldn't make the pickup. So, it's Father's Day. So, this is typically something that I like to do. So, yeah. And at this point, I'm just saying, okay, I'm going to pick up whatever this guy... so, I called him. All I had was his phone number. I get him on the phone. He says, well, okay. You're calling about the Amiga stuff? Yes, before I'd said anything, basically. Yes. I said, can be there at 11. So, I drove down there. Being a Sunday, it was not very busy. And I end up in this guy's apartment. And he lives in one of those streets. It's just a one-way, single lane. And I have to park my car in the middle of the street. So I'm hoping there's no one there. So I call him up. Said, okay. He buzzes me in. And it's 6 flights of stairs. Now I'm not in perfect shape, but I'm not in bad shape either. So I can make the 6 flights, but Christ, it was it was quite a hike. I was out of breath, and there was no elevator. So I think the guy's name was Paul. He was older than I am, and by the looks of it, single. And he said, well, one of the reasons that I'm moving out is the lack of an elevator. And I could see immediately why that would be a reason, because he was it was the top floor in Six Flags. It was if you have to drag your groceries up there, then or suitcases or move, I can understand that he didn't want to. I would have said the Amiga stuff, it's no problem. Anyway, I couldn't carry it all. As he showed it to me in the hallway, and it was a boxed Amiga 500 with some copied games, like two boxes of discs. So as I'm walking this down, I'm putting it in my car, and I'm walking back up. And by the time I'm upstairs again, now totally out of breath, I hear the car honking downstairs. I'm in the way. So he says, "Oh, I've got this as well." So he gives me the second box, which is like a tall box. It's not heavy. I'm thinking, what the hell is in there? I don't know. I just take it. He graciously carries some other stuff. There's some joysticks and things. Carries it down for me. I chuck it in the back. Car's waiting. I thank Paul. He thanks me. Goodbye. So as I'm driving home, I'm thinking, Christ, if this is all going to be shipped to the UK to Pete, because stuff belongs to Pete, right? He's the one who got the deal. So now Pete said very graciously, that we can, take whatever you like and let's sell it and split the difference, which I think would have been the better. I mean, sending all this stuff would have cost at least €50, which is worth the lot. But you get in this weird thing, like how we're going to split the proceeds. What are you going to do with the set? Everything you think, oh, I'd like this, you basically have to buy from, I'd have to buy from Pete. So I'm thinking about this, do I can just buy the whole set, but I'm not looking for an Amiga. Just fell in my lap, and now I'm here with an instant Amiga collection. Everything is there. So I'm sort of going back and forth with Pete, what are we going to do? Let's think about this. How much is it worth? Could we sell it? To whom could we sell it? And I make a catalog. This tall box of games it's a box of games. And all Amiga games, all boxed. I kept one because Pete wanted it, right? This is like Xenon 2 in the box. And this box is mint. It is mint. The original, this has no price tag on it, but there were price tags on it for 90 guilders. That was when he bought it. They were all mint and complete. Games like Speedball and I don't know. I looked them all up. Xenon 2, there's like a sticker inside, and there's a disc, and that's the first time I'm opening this. This stuff is mint. Posters inside, discs, you name it. So I'm thinking the value of this set is in the games. I mean, I don't know what the Amiga's worth. Yeah, I did test it. At least I wanted to test it, so I hooked it up and turned it on, and it made all the right sounds, and all the right lights came on, but I didn't. It came with an RGB cable, and I connected it to a number of monitors that I had, but I couldn't get a picture on any of them. So I have an Amiga monitor upstairs, but it had like two tulip connectors, and I just couldn't figure it out quickly, So I assumed that the Amiga, I opened it up, there was a clock and RAM expansion in the bottom. So and it was an Amiga 500, yellowed. But it was a nice set. So I happen to know a reseller. And I talked to Pete and said, what if we sold it to him? So we decided to get a price. I quickly listed. I went on eBay and looked at all the, at all the games and what they'd sold for. Now, there's one or two that went for 40 or 50 euros. Some games weren't even on there. Some went for 5 or 7. They weren't, mint or not, they weren't all very valuable. So I called this reseller, Marvin, who doesn't live here, but by some stroke of luck, he was in my town on that day. So I said, well, why don't you come and take a look? And we sort of set a minimum price, Pete and I, and in the end, I mean, it's a reseller, and I knew he was going to go for the lowest price, which was a lot lower than what we wanted for it. And I ended up selling the whole thing for 300 euros. Which you can argue, that's I may have gotten more out of it. But if I'd sold, or Pete had sold these games, we would have had to ship as well. So that money would have come off. So I think we would have come out even. We would have come out at this amount. So in the end, I thought it was pretty funny that here I'm sitting with a complete Amiga collection that I wasn't waiting for, and I'm selling the thing. I was actually having fun picking up and selling this stuff. It's not something that I do all the time, but I like the trading. And one of the things, I saw that Marvin started to post some pictures of his purchase on Facebook, and some of the guys said, "Oh, I want this and I want that." And then that's when I realized, this guy now has the trouble of having to sell everything. He can only make his money back if he sells everything. And his argument was, well, I'm gonna sit there with my games, and I'm gonna have a load of people come by and said, "Oh, I've already got this. So you have to really sell everything to make a buck." And he's never gonna know, unless he keeps track of the whole thing, if he's going to make any money. So I think we did the right thing. So I was tempted for a second there to say, I want to keep it and have an Amiga. But then the fact that I couldn't get it to work right out of the box, I was thinking, oh no, I'm going to have to buy cables, and I'm going to have to buy SD solutions and whatever. And so I'm not interested in Amiga. It was popular far beyond the time that I was interested in Commodore computers at all. So I always thought that it was kind of a weird, like, not PC. I mean, the Amiga is only cool if you have a nostalgic feeling for it. I think personally that the music for Amiga game is always out of place and over the top, because it's so good at making music. This is what the game designers put all their effort in, and you get menus with over the top music and sound, which is completely, from a design perspective, I think wrong. As is the interface. I think the interface is ugly. It is hard to navigate, but for the time, it was really cool, and I get that. I'm not dissing the Amiga or the Workbench software, and you could do really cool things with it. But to me, not having that history, I look at it now and I think I don't see it. So I'm not personally interested in the Amiga, although I think it's a cool computer, and I was tempted to sort of dive in and investigate, and I still might at some point. But that is not this day. So I will have put some pictures up, so you will have seen. I just took some pictures to show Pete what we had, and because he didn't know. So the Instant Amiga collection, that happened. And it was intense for a moment there, and with a lot of quick thinking and deciding, and what are we gonna do quickly? So all of a sudden you're in this thing together. Pete said, "Well, if you can't sell it, I'll just come over there with an empty suitcase and take everything with me." I saved this game for Pete. He said he was gonna come and pick it up. So, Pete, you're welcome to come over and pick it up. Or if I go to the UK before then, of course, I'll take it with me. So all of a sudden, I had some money to spend, and I've been saving up for some things, like either the Pimax 4K VR set, which I don't know, man. There were these. I mean, I look for these all the time, and I think I see them for sale all the time. But at the moment that you want one, they become really rare. So there are some shops that are selling them new for $275, some for $600. You get the same set for $600 new, or $275 from another. So the retail price and it's a really odd market. They're not very popular machines, which I think is wrong, because I think they're valuable in their. But it's VR. Not everyone likes VR. So I'm looking for a Pimax 4K. There's two guys on the local sites selling theirs, and one on eBay, one in Germany. And I swear I lost the one in Germany to the same guy that I was bidding against in the Netherlands. Sure of it. So people put up things for sale. You can bid. You can put in a bid, you type in an amount, and he'll get a message, like an automated message, and he can decide whether or not he accepts the offer. I usually send a message because it's more personal, and I want to find out what kind of person it is. If you get like one-word answers, I usually hesitate, buying from them. Usually I don't, because it'll be like a rough buy, and they won't budge with the price, and they'll fuck up the packaging and that kind of thing. So this guy, and I want to get a feel for what kind of price they're looking for. So this guy said $300 minimum. He said he'd bought it to use with his drone, but it didn't work with a drone. It only works on Windows. I'm thinking, you bought this whole thing without figuring that out first? So this is a disgruntled Pimax 4K owner who wants his money back. So $300. And I'm thinking, well, you obviously didn't look on the site to see what the others were asking, because I can get a new one for less. So I sort of chuckled in my message and said, sorry, it's more than I'm willing to pay, but I made him an offer anyway, $175, something like that. And then another guy pops up and he says, I want $200 minimum. So all of a sudden, someone else starts bidding on these things as well. So I start at $150, and they push it all the way up to $190. But these guys aren't budging. They're still waiting. To this day, there are two Pimax 4K sets for sale on the local sites, and they're still waiting for their 200 and 300 minimal offers. 250, actually, not 200, 250. I'm not sure they're gonna get it. They may, but at the time I lost because at the same time there was an eBay offer going on as well, and at the time I lost that, all the biddings on the local site disappeared. So I'm thinking this is the same guy that bought it. So I didn't succeed in buying a Pimax 4K, which is fine. I'm not in a rush, and I will find one. I'll just have to find the money again, because the money that I made, I spent on the Ultimate 64. I put in my order last night. So I don't have it yet, obviously, but I want to talk about it a little bit. The Ultimate 64 is designed and produced by Gideon. Gideon is a Dutch. He's a compatriot of mine, and he has designed and produced and sold the 1541 Ultimate before, which is I'd have to pull it out of my Commodore now, but it's a small device that you push in the back of your Commodore 64, your existing old-fashioned Commodore 64, and it emulates a 1541 disk drive. So with that, you don't need access to a working 1541 drive. It can do more than that. It can emulate 2 drives. It can also emulate 2 SIDs. It can emulate a SID and a drive. The bottom line is that you push an SD card into it with Commodore 64 disk images, and the Commodore reads them as if a 1541 disk drive was attached to your Commodore. You can also daisy chain a real disk to it so that you have an actual physical one and the 1541. The 1541 Ultimate even emulates the disk sounds, if you like. So you can actually listen to the original disk sounds, which is a neat feature. The first one had a tape interface so that you can emulate tape. I think the second one doesn't have that anymore because 1541 Ultimate Plus came out earlier this year or last year, which also has a network interface and sort of an upgraded version. But that's just the 1541 Ultimate. That's what it's called, 1541 Ultimate 2, which is a pricey but very worthwhile device to have. Now Gideon has moved to the next level and has designed and produced a main board. Basically, he made a replacement for the main board. This is a main board out of a Commodore 64, the one that I'm still working on, and it has a number of chips on it. And this one isn't working, and I have another one that isn't working, and I have one here that is working. The thing is, they can fail. Memory RAM chips can fail, PLAs can fail, VIC chips and SIDs and voltage regulators, they can all fail. And if you're not willing to do any repairs, or you are incapable of doing them because you don't have the skills or the tools or whatever, or the time for that matter, you know, getting a real Commodore 64 can be a world of hurt, you know, because you can buy one that is not working, and then what? You know, you need someone to repair it. So this Ultimate 64 is a replacement for the main board, including all the chips. So none of the original chips are on this main board, but the thing emulates a Commodore 64. It does that with an FPGA. So what Gideon has done, he has designed all of the chips and programmed them into a field programmable gate array, which basically just mimics the original design of the chips, giving you a working Commodore 64, which has been proven to work. You know, it's been done before, and it works very well. Of course, this is new technology. Naturally, it has all the hookups that you need. It fits right into the original case of a Commodore 64. So you can all you have to do is find a case. You can put it in, hook up the original keyboard, power supply, joysticks, and you're good to go. You know, you can. I think it has an SD slot as well, because it also has the 1541 Ultimate functionality, as far as I know. basically it's a hassle-free Commodore, and you can play the games now. If you're heavily into demos, what Commodore did is that they designed chips and they documented the features, and normal games programmers used the documented features to make their games. And they may have been very creative, but they stayed within the limits. Now, as time went on, people wanted to do things with the Commodore 64 that wasn't originally possible, that it wasn't meant to do. So they explored all the undocumented features, all the unintended features. If you look at the Commodore 64, it does many things that, I mean, it has an instruction set, and each instruction is basically a number, and there are gaps in the numbers. Some numbers are, mean an instruction, and some don't. If you try some of these undocumented commands, they still do something. And this is just one example of the quirks that are in the Commodore 64. Things that work, but they're not supposed to work. Now, in the Ultimate 64, some or perhaps all of these quirks are not implemented because they are perhaps not correctly documented. Anyway, it's a design choice. So that means that all the software that heavily leans on the existence of these quirks will only work on original hardware and not on the Ultimate 64. Now, for normal games, I've not tested every game out there, so there might be a game out there that uses a quirk for something, and that won't work. But all of the demos that actually look for those quirks to make the Commodore 64 do stuff that it wasn't supposed to do, many of them won't work. Like I've been told that 50% of them might not work, which makes sense. So if you're heavily into demos, the Ultimate 64 probably isn't the way to go. But if you're just looking for a Commodore 64 that will work for the next 50 years, at least, the Ultimate 64 is your thing. What you'll get is a main board, and I think a power supply. So you'll have to get a case somewhere, but you can buy like a broken Commodore 64, plunk in the main board, and you're done, right? So I've ordered that. Gideon is a one-man company. I already learned that when I bought the Ultimate 64. It can take a long time for him to... He has to get the main boards produced. He does that in China. So he has a bunch of boards and parts come in, and he has to assemble them, and then he has to ship them and process the orders and blah, 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 blah. So it can take a long, long time. So the way this works is you can put in the order. You can decide whether or not you want to pay at that moment or later. I decided to pay now because I'm going to spend that money twice if I don't. And it's going to take a long time. You're going to wait, and you're going to wait until the moment that you think, I can't wait anymore, and then you're going to get angry, and you're going to send messages, and then they're going to say, I'm working on it, you're the next one, you're in the next batch. It's going to take a long time. I know that. But at least I've made sure that I have the Ultimate 64. I have cases, so I can just put it in something and have a Commodore. So that's what I've done, and it's coming. And I'll of course let you know when it's here. My battery's running out, so I have to wrap it up. There's no news, by the way, on the Opportunity Rover. And it is Opportunity that is the one that is still driving. I had some messages from people saying Spirit, but Spirit got bogged down right at the start of the whole project. So it's Opportunity that is moving about, and it's caught in the storm on Mars, still happening. The storm hasn't dissipated. They said when the storm came, it's going to take 2 or 3 more days, but it's a planet enveloping storm. So the storm is all over the planet. So the thing still hasn't responded. And the last contact they had was June 10th. And it's just a matter of waiting. So I guess we'll have to wait for that as well. If I or you hear anything, then if I hear anything, I'll put it in the next video. Maybe I'm forgetting something. I don't know. But that's it. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.